Good morning. What's your favorite song? I bet the answer is it depends, right? Yeah. You probably have a favorite gospel song, a favorite high life song, a favorite love song, and so forth, don't you? How about your favorite outfit? That depends on the occasion, right? And I'm sure you don't have so much a favorite food as you have a favorite breakfast, or maybe a favorite snack or a favorite dessert, and so forth. That is how most people are when it comes to making choices. Since no single thing is absolutely perfect, we do the smart thing and hedge our choices so that we can enjoy the best qualities of more than one option. But there are some notable exceptions to this. There are times when we make a choice and we stick with it for life. You think I'm talking about marriage, don't you? Most certainly not. Have you seen the divorce rates lately? No, I'm afraid there are too many people who consider marriage a temporary arrangement. These days, people are more committed to their choice of football team than they are to their choice of spouse. No, I'm actually thinking of a choice that once a Ghanaian makes, they typically will never depart from. I'm thinking about our choice of political party. For most Ghanaians, it seems as if we are assigned a political party the minute we hit puberty, and then we spend the rest of our lives supporting it, no matter what. Everything our party does is right. Every person who belongs to our party is good. Every criticism of our party is wrong. Every idea our party proposes is great. In a world where nobody and nothing is ever perfect, we somehow manage to see perfection even in the large, squeegee, organic, fallible human institution that is a political party. The minute someone points out a perceived flaw in our party, it's like a switch goes off in our brains that tells us that our political party can't possibly be wrong, and so we must justify whatever caused the criticism at all costs. It's almost as if, to all politically aware adults, their party is their parent. Whatever they say we will do, wherever they send us we will go. They own us, mind, body and soul, and that's the end of it. My dear friend, I wonder if we realize how heavily this attitude is contributing to the stunted growth and development of our nation and our continent. Now, the more human our leaders are, the more flawed they are. That's the fact. Our history in this part of the world has unfortunately proven that our leaders are as human and as flawed as they come. So in order to follow our flawed leaders so blindly, we must rebrand their flaws as virtues so that we can color them perfect. Look, perfection kills improvement. And a nation that celebrates flaws as virtues is robbing itself of the ability to improve. I mean, how warped is our logic if we feel that our parties and their leadership can never make mistakes? Aren't they human beings? Could they possibly know everything about everything? More importantly, is it not naive to think that our opponents have never ever got it right before? Not even by accident. Bye-bye. What are the odds of that? Some people believe that when it comes to political affiliation, we should be balanced. By balanced, they mean we should give equal attention and acknowledgement to all parties in political discourse. I don't believe in balance, but I do believe in objectivity. Objectivity is all about taking each issue on a case-by-case basis. It's about drawing your conclusions based on the merits or demerits of every individual situation and not deciding your position beforehand based on which party you were born into. It's about deciding which argument makes sense at the time. It's about appreciating the pros and cons to make measured and informed decisions on all issues at all times. That is objectivity, and that is what we all need more of. So the next time you hear a controversial news item, forget about your party colors for a moment. Forget that your father and his father before him belonged to the CPP or the NDC or the PPP or the NPP. Forget about who you voted for in the last 7 elections. Forget about following the leader. Just close your eyes, think of the issue, and ask yourself, what makes sense? Our nation has real problems and our leaders are only human. Let's not make them into gods and then follow them until they lead us off a cliff. My name is Kojo Yankson. And in our part of the world, we are not always blessed with great leaders, but we are constantly cursed with excellent followers. Don't be one of them. Good morning, Ghana.
Hello, good morning and welcome to the AM News with me, Mapita Sibiri. Now, for our story, there's been a marginal reduction in fuel prices. The initial increase of 17 pesos reflected at the pumps on Monday, triggering outrage on social media under the Fix the Country hashtag. Commercial drivers are, however, lamenting how the fuel price increase is hurting their business.
I think the price is too high. I don't know if it's because of the taxes or what. I think the government can do something about it. Honestly, something needs to be done. And once fuel price goes up, it affects everything.
For me, actually we sell online, okay? Once we sell online, the fuel price goes up. It makes some of these clients have difficulty to order the stuff that they do. So imagine a client is buying something 65 cedis and have to pay a delivery of 40 cedis. How would they come back and come and buy again if the delivery is so exorbitant?
So far as the fuel prices have gone up, we know that obviously it's going to affect a lot of things. And it's obviously, if it affects a lot of things, okay, negatively, we know the hardship that it will be on the workers if workers' salaries have not been increased.
Aban we oba enya sa anwum no woto ye. Oba se oba na ye nyina ye ho ato ye. Ya adra for 42. Efa petrol hu nsem. Enso oba no de bia petrol ko soro. Ye nti ase. Sa no ka oba na ko sa no ka anka ye ntoma no. Enti onso ho na petrol nsem in fact. Yes, you put two petrol gun so you who some for so.
To be frank, auntie, for any dear, a year high to the extent that we are Juma, Unyashi, yes, we are year Juma for Swanti. Some, but yeah, because Unya, Unchiru, we are Juma hand to mouth. So, Intanka, slow by an uncle and share. Boy, I also just obey baby my yes, way then your home at Toyanka crap because you see a gun for.
Well, I'm so much too much. Yes, we can scan the room and say, yes, I might want to you to have a Sakaka Diamano. Full amount of so much on Tismaka, Crasina Bay, Sivania Cadazio Botum, Neddy my money and bound on Monsieur Question School, their Costco anymore.
Away from that, the Ghana Journalists Association is requesting a roundtable conversation with the top hierarchy of the Ghana Police Service to find ways to prevent attacks on journalists. 2 years after Ahmed Swale was murdered, the culprits are yet to be found. Sadly, within the same period, other journalists have been subjected to various forms of attack. Speaking in a ceremony to mark International World Press Freedom Day, Vice President of the Ghana Journalists Association, Linda Asante-Ajay, said the GJA needs more information on how investigation into the gruesome murder is going.
So we're happy when the Minister of Justice, through the courtesy call that he paid to the leadership of the Ghana Police Service, urging them to speed up with the investigations and making sure that at least the perpetrators of these media attacks are brought to book. But then we are also requesting for a roundtable meeting with the leadership of the national, with the security agencies, as to how best we can prevent media attacks. Some of them can be prevented, so how best can we work together to prevent media attacks? Is it that they do not understand the work of the media, or they do, but then it's deliberate? These are some of the things that we have to engage the leadership of the security agencies and then find a lasting solution to it.
Right. Speaking about attacks, there's one specific issue. Ahmed Swale, it's been a number of years now. Like he's mentioned, the Attorney General had been speaking to the police, but not so much has come out of it. Is the GJ getting any update, or what exactly are you doing about that?
Yes, that is what I said, that if the president of this nation today granted an interview to CNN, and he did mention the issue of Ahmed Swale came up as to how far they've gone with it, because that is what is also affecting our ranking. seriously. That is what is affecting our ranking. And the President affirmed government's support and willingness to ensure that the security agencies, whoever is in charge of the investigations, speed up and then make sure that the perpetrators are brought to book. And in fact, for the Attorney General, he was just sworn into office. It is too early for us to, start attacking him. But then, whilst we wait for our president, that is the president of GJA, to come from Namibia, we'll be calling on him to find out how far, because once you ask the police to speed up, at least we also expect that some follow-ups will be made, to ensure that really what the request that he made to them is being followed.
Meanwhile, Information Minister Kojo Ponkrumah says government is very concerned about the slow pace of investigation.
20 years, we dropped from number 1 to number 2 in Africa. It's mostly been because of reports or allegations that some journalists have been attacked or intimidated. There needs to be a proper mechanism for A, validating, and B, following up on these investigations to ensure that persons responsible are sanctioned and are held accountable for their actions. Very concerned, and that's why we continue to chase up on the ministry responsible for the interior, and they do it through the police. But we need some more attention on that kind of investigation. We need to pile some more pressure on them to get to the bottom of it. Let's also admit that all over the world, sometimes they have what they call cold cases. It takes a while before they get to the bottom of it. But it's precisely because of incidents like this. That is why we've put together this coordinated mechanism, so that we can have some coordinated follow-up action and attention on some of these incidents.
In the last few days, there have been concerns about culture of silence. People have said that there's a culture of silence in the system and that media men are not free to be able to criticize government.
Yet to find any television or radio station that will honestly say that they can no longer empanel people because the journalists are not able to report. You guys are here. You report freely any day on anything you want to report. You invite people who disagree with government to express their views on a regular basis. Journalists publish their opinions. Nobody is arrested or jailed or attacked for expressing their opinions. What I've heard is that some persons are not happy that when they put out their view, other people have counter opinions, and they rather than go on the attack that, oh, these persons who are expressing their opinions are saying so because they are on government payroll. Or you express your opinion, there's nothing wrong with it. When somebody disagrees with you, that person must be disagreeing because he's on a government payroll. I don't think so. I think that we should give each other that mutual respect when it comes to expressing our opinions. Take the recent case of a very high-profile person who made public comments about the culture of silence. And then a lecturer of a university disagreed with him. And then he proceeded to report to the university that that lecturer should be sanctioned. That is an attempt to create a culture of silence. I think that we have a very open and free environment in this country.
The Ministry of Lands is relying on the support of national security to enforce the directive on suspension of all mining activities in forest reserves. A one-week ultimatum for all cognizance and prospecting activities to cease has expired, but the ministry says some recalcitrant miners are yet to move the equipment from site. Deputy Minister Designate for Lands Benito Usubayo and Chief Executive of the Forestry Commission, John Alutem, monitored the level of compliance in some areas. Hoimeng, who joined the team, filed this report.
Several hectares of virgin forest have been destroyed in the Oda Forest Reserve. Officials at the Ministry of Lands say owners of the concession have satisfied all mining requirements except the acquisition of a mining operating permit. Several hectares of mined lands had been reclaimed by the miners who had acquired mining lease, forestry entry permit, among others. A makeshift camp, excavators and bulldozers under the protection of some security men were on site. Benito Owusu was unhappy with the failure of the miners to suspend operations. He ordered one of the excavators and makeshift camp to be set on fire to deter other operators.
This particular forest reserve, Oda River, the company that is working here has been informed, written to, by the district forest officer. And also previously in January, an exercise was carried on here. And in that exercise, 10 excavators were impounded here and seized and sent to Bekwai. And still they are here. So it tells you that they are recalcitrant. We will onward relay the information to the national security apparatus. Enforcement is not the work of our ministry. The enforcement aspect of it is the mandate of the national security apparatus. We would let them carry on with their work to serve as a deterrent to others, especially this company, which is recalcitrant and is not prepared to listen.
The story was, however, different at the Subin Waterbed Reserve, where illegal miners had destroyed the forest and part of cocoa farm with impunity.
Most of the cocoa farms, they've destroyed them. Look, if you look over there, you see the cocoa farms.
The situation has left several open mining pits scattered on the field. Economic viable tree species such as Hidria and Sidrella have been destroyed. Though no one was seen on site at the time of the visit, Mr. Osubio was incensed at the level of devastation.
This particular forest reserve, there has been no application for any prospecting or reconnaissance whatsoever. So what you see here was a total blatant illegality. And look at the level of destruction. See the number of forest trees that they have destroyed. The tree you see behind here is a shade tree. And you know what shade tree is. A very good economic tree. They've destroyed them all. Fortunately, when they heard of the ultimatum that was given to them, I understand they have withdrawn and have taken away all the equipment. So what it means is that the ultimatum and then the ban is working.
Mr. Osubio wants further investigations into the conduct of the mining operators.
Our forest reserves are important and they serve as a cover for our rivers. We will look for them anyway. We will do investigation and see if we can find whoever came here to do this.
From Kumasi, for JoyNews, Mtn.
And our last story, some duty bearers in Upper West region have launched a JoyNews ahead of the Rosewood Forum to take place in a few hours. Some of the people who spoke to JoyNews, including parliamentarians, district chief executives and assembly members, noted that the illegal cutting of rosewood in the region is having a negative effect on the already fragile ecological zone and are happy that the debate is being given national attention. Rafiq Salam reports from Wa.
The increasing speed of the illegal felon and transportation in the Upper West region of Rosewood, despite the ban placed by the government almost 9 years ago. The rich Rosewood cabal, mostly operating with the connivance of some corrupt government officials and local authorities, are on the rampage, sometimes extending the illegal act to other tree species which looks almost same as rosewood but with a lesser value. JoyNews team over the weekend went on the prowl and bumped into several of the rosewood freshly cut and arrested by some district assemblies and communities. With the Rosewood Forum coming up, some duty bearers in the region are full of praise to the multimedia group for seeing the need to hold such a forum. Member of Parliament for Warwest constituency, Superintendent retired Peter Lenchine Tubu, is happy about the forum, hoping that the debate will be lifted to the national level.
Let's treat the Rosewood menace as a national challenge. Let's lift the debate to a national level. And let's provide national attention to this fight. Let's fight it as a country. It is not an issue of War West. It is not an issue of War East. It's an issue that affects the whole of this country. And if we have governmental support in this battle, it will do us some good.
For Assemblyman of the Kajikolo North electoral area, Jerry J. Morris, whose community the large chunk of the Rosewood has been arrested, and it is welcoming.
We are very much happy with us, because normally if you are able to work out your jurisdiction and you think you are free, if they hear they are doing it elsewhere, you find other recalcitrants trying to also copy what is happening elsewhere. But if the media has taken it up, I think it will go a long way to help the fight we are carrying for now.
His district chief executive, Narabora Sanda, stated that it is a dream come true.
We have to also handle this environment very well and then hand it over to our generations yet unborn. And for that matter, I want everybody to be involved, especially you, the media, to champion a cause that will educate people so that they will know the danger behind cutting this rosewood. If it is organized, it will just be falling in line with what I have been thinking, that cutting of rosewood should not be for an individual. It should be a collective effort. So if JoyNews is going ahead to organize this forum, we will just say it is a welcoming news, and we will all do well to be there and to support to make sure that it becomes a success.
A view equally shared by his colleague DCE from the Rosewood district, Edwin Library Sabo, who will want his district to be fully represented at the forum.
So once I have started it and they are going to organize this forum, I think I will be the first person to champion it. I'm very ready. I will make sure that I will put in place the committee that I was talking about to be representing the various electoral area, so that on that fateful day, all of us will surface there.
And that's how we end the air news with me, Mapito CBD.
Welcome to another installment of the news review segment right here on the AM show. Here we are, getting it down.
Yeah.
For God and country.
Here we go.
Good morning.
Here we go again. Yeah, good morning,
Charlie.
Dan. You good? Oh, this is Ghana made. This is Auntie B again. Smart clothing.
Auntie B, where me enemy who and then make a tree. News review, no back for make a tree. Just kidding. Anyway.
He makes me beautiful dresses every day. So what I wear is made in Ghana, like it's handmade.
Right.
Yeah.
So right before we dig into the papers, Mama V, very important. Today happens to be World Maternal Mental Health Day, a very important day. And especially in these times of COVID-19, it is important what mothers have gone through, what they've been through in the cycle, nursing mothers, pregnant mothers. You know, during the period of the lockdown, for example, you would ask yourself some of what mothers had to go through when they were locked down. You even wanted to access healthcare. Sometimes there would be challenges. You'd be stopped here and there. So quite a lot to think through on a day like this. There's actually a statement that has been put out, and maybe we'll just take a brief look at what exactly it says. There's a statement, and it actually is. I'll just take a brief look at it. It's from the Basic Needs Office in Ghana, and it highlights World Maternal Mental Health Awareness Day, which is today, and the theme is Journeys to Recovery. The event being organized is meant to raise awareness, influence policy, and change attitudes towards maternal mental health issues. And it's intended to highlight how much the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the way maternal and mental health services are delivered. Hopefully, in the course of the day, we'll be bringing you more on these, but a very important, crucial matter, in fact, to highlight at a time like this when mothers are having to, do everything they already do in the midst of COVID-19, Mama V.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's concentrate now on the newspapers. So I've got the Daily Graphic, the Finder newspaper. I see the Custodian, the Daily Statesman, the Daily Guide, and the Ghanaian Publisher. These are the papers that I'll be taking a look at.
For me, the Daily Dispatch, the BNFT, the Business and Financial Times, Ghanaian Times, the Accra Times, and Republic Press.
Okay, so let's start, I guess, with the Daily Graphic newspaper. On the front page, sustainable health financing critical. Current arrangement can't meet SDGs, according to President. But the picture that accompanies this headline is that of Mr. Dan Boche, Minister of Local Government, Decentralization and Rural Development. He was reading the President's message. More tales of missing babies pop up. That's a story that I will be telling you much more about. Details in page 16. Government reduces petroleum taxes from 17 Ghana pesos to 9 Ghana pesos per litre. We will see if this reflects today. We're expecting that the stations, the fuel stations, will make the necessary adjustment, but certainly we're not taking kindly to the fact that there's been this kind of increments. We're now, it's still, you know, take the 9 out, you still be in the range of 6 cedis, and that's quite significant still. On page, okay, no, let's do the center spread of the Daily Graphic newspaper. GGA commemorates Press Freedom Day. Engineers sign an accord for standardization of engineering education. And then a delegation from the Accra Metropolitan Assembly and Africa Environmental Sanitation Consult, the research and consultancy firm of Jospon Group of Companies and sanitization giants, are in Kigali, the Rwandan capital, to understudy the country's waste management system and good environmental and sanitation practices. On the back page, trading at the Takrade Central Market, popularly called Market Circle, has ceased as traders have finally relocated to a temporary trading area to pave the way for the reconstruction of the 90-year-old market center. And this is what we hope that other municipalities and districts would learn. You need to prepare a place for them and, you know, relocate them temporarily whilst you fix the main structure. So certainly a good thing that the municipality is doing. And then police hunt for a man over wife's death. He's a 45-year-old. And he's alleged to have murdered his wife, Amefriye, 38, at Edumasa in the Ashanti Achim Central Municipality of the Ashanti region. Kwesi Choko, currently at large, allegedly butchered his wife of 17 years last Saturday on their way to the farm before absconding. The couple have 6 children. The body of Ama was found by a police search party upon a formal complaint by her father when the couple failed to return home on the day. So more of the story on the back page. There's the police PRO in the Ashanti region, ASP Ahianyo, who said the police were currently on a manhunt for the husband on suspicion of murdering the wife. Okay. All right, that's it for the Daily Graphic.
Let's take a quick look at the Daily Dispatch this morning. Protecting your ballots. An educated polling agent must be loyal. Interesting because former President Mahama has been talking about some of what happened in 2020 and his own party agents. NPA reduces fuel margins by somewhat 8 pesos. That is also there, but some are not impressed, while others say it's a step in the right direction. Of course, there was that meeting between major stakeholders yesterday. The country has issues, but we will get there. Gabi Asare Ochre Dako is the one saying that, well, issues we do have. Get there, the question is when. We cannot punish MPs over misconduct on January 8, 2021. That's according to the Member of Parliament for Bekwai, who also doubles as the first Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joe Osewu. So I'll just take a quick look at that. The story says he has revealed that despite the House setting up a committee to investigate what he described as shameful conduct of some elected parliamentarians during the election of the Speaker of the House on the night of January 7, 2021, the House cannot punish anyone for the conduct. The reason? He says the unconstitutional conduct was not, those who perpetrated the unconstitutional conduct were not sworn in MPs and hence cannot be held into contempt or held in contempt with parliamentary laws. Mama V, I have a big problem with this because I think If lawmakers, legislators, those who make laws for us, cannot be held accountable when they err, then no one should be held accountable in this country. I don't know whether you're seeing the logic in here, but if you, the people in charge of making laws that govern everybody in this country, if you are above the law, then we have no business following any laws in this country. I'm not trying to foster chaos out there, but how can we say this? You say they were not parliamentarians. Were they citizens? Can a citizen on a day like that go to parliament and do what they did? If an ordinary citizen cannot do it, a parliamentarian, whether he has been sworn in or she has not been sworn in, must face some penalties. I'm not saying go and throw them in jail, but there must be something to show that, oh, we have erred. You say, you call it what? Shameful conduct. Yet the shameful conduct cannot be punished. I'm sorry, we're a crazy country. Very crazy country. That's it with the Daily Dispatch.
I feel your fire this morning, Ben. Just calm down. The Finder newspaper is the next paper that I would go through. On the front page, MP's murder. Judge threatens to dissolve jury over trial delays. This is certainly very worrying because everything was set for them to proceed. And I'm talking about the former Member of Parliament for Buakwa North, JB Dankwa Edu, and the judge is threatening to dissolve the jury should they delay the trial. Was actually one juror who was absent because he was before another court apparently, and the judge had to wait for about an hour, and he still didn't show, and so she was forced to adjourn the case again. But she's saying that this shouldn't happen. If it does happen, he's going to dissolve the whole jury. But there was an apology and a promise that the incident will not be repeated. So trial had commenced before a 7-member jury with prosecution led by Mrs. Safako Bacha calling its first prosecution witness. The court was expected to hear the evidence of the second prosecution witness in the person of Stephen Apreko, but as you know, that did not happen. So Daniel Esiedu, aka Sexy Don Don, is being held for murder and robbery of the former legislator at his residence at Shiashi near East Legon in February 2026. Also in the dock is Vincent Bosu, aka Junior Agogo, being held for conspiring with Esiedu to rob the former legislator on that fateful day. They have both denying the various charges and have been remanded into lawful custody by the court to reappear on May 6th. So that's where we are with this matter. Just on that same page where I picked details
Can I just chip in briefly? I hope it doesn't get to the point where they have to reconstitute the jury, because that would be more time spent going back and forth. Recently, Ahmed Suale's family has been up in arms with the bit that, you know, this whole issue has been protracted. That's another one right there. And we don't need any extra time on it. Let the right thing be done. And I think the jurors also ought to sit up.
Absolutely. So yesterday we mentioned briefly about a man who was alleged to have stormed the offices of National Security, NIB now.
National Intelligence Bureau.
Yes, after the arrest of those who are alleged to be involved in fake currency. He organized a press briefing yesterday where he told the media he essentially denied his involvement and also denied that he stormed the offices of the intelligence outfit and, you know, resorted to all the things that he's alleged to have done. So that denial is in the paper. You can read details of that. I think there's a specific area of, you remember that the statement,
it's interesting, isn't it? Because the Daily Graphic reported that categorically that this is what the people, you know, saw him or heard him say or do.
So let me read his side of it as well. The National Security in its statement to the media said Alhaji Bando had claimed to be a presidential staffer at the castle and the client of Yase Alia, Syrian, who was allegedly involved in the printing of fake currency. The statement said that he drove to the National Security headquarters, verbally assaulted the leader of the operation, and vowed to free the suspects. He was aggressive in his conduct, according to the statement. Let's see. And I thought I would get a direct reaction to that, but not. But essentially, yesterday, Alhaji Ahmed Bando says that They should go over and look at their CCTV cameras at the premises and confirm if he really was engaged in what he's alleged to be engaged in. On that same page, page 4, still in the finder, 2 suspects, George Opoku and Ernest Yabuabo, 21 years old, have been arrested by the Odoko Police Command for allegedly terrorizing and robbing innocent persons around Bawe and its environs using their motorbikes. Details of that arrest and the fact that the police are investigating the incident as efforts are underway to arrest a 3rd suspect. A good breakdown of the story is right there. But if you go back to the front page, let's see. Subsidies on fuel totaled $3.1 billion in 10 years. Critics prefer spending it on development projects. So this is Elvis Dackle, the editor of the Finder newspaper, who's put a beautiful piece you might want to read to get a better understanding of where we are with regards to this. I think that will be it for the Finder.
Republic Press now. JB's murder case, judge threatens to dissolve jury. You just took a look at that story. Are we close to the tipping point? Find out on page 13. Anodompre denigrates hashtag fix the country protesters, apologizes after backlash. Fix yourself, right? We're fixing ourselves, but let's fix our institutions. Let's fix everything. Let's fix the legislature as well. Yeah, let's fix the legislature. Let's fix government. Let's fix everything.
Will the protest happen or not? Police say
that one.
There's an imposition.
Is it Vomao? But it's interesting, right? We could have elections. I mean, we could have campaigning before the elections and all of that in the midst of COVID. But, you know, there are 2 sides to this. The Constitution guarantees something. On the other end, we have COVID. I'll leave the police to do their work. I think it was Ifiatenge yesterday speaking to these. I found it very interesting. And then the response from, I think, Mr. Vomao. So let's leave it at that. But it appears they are bent on going ahead with this one. Social distance demonstration will be interesting to see. But, Mama, this is one that comes off our show yesterday. Teenage pregnancy surge. Men should zip up. Girls should close their legs. Otiko Jaba, Afisa Jaba, said that yesterday. And this is a story that our very own Echo, Sam, Derek, put together. So proud of you for that one. You can check out details on page 7 of the story. It succinctly captures, the headline. $14 million Veep mansion rots away, squatters, weeds, rodents take over. I'll highlight this story because it's been some 6 years or more since the official residence, or what was meant to be the official residence of the vice president, has been in such a state at the Brostito Avenue on the Kumoji Hospital Road. The building has become a haven for squatters and rodents and giant weeds, according to the paper. You remember Asumdwe Park and a similar issue. So I'm asking myself, from Saglemi to all of these abandoned projects. Now we have this one, and it's $14 million. Even if the Veep is not going to use it, can we find some use for this? Even if it were a library where people can go and read, our young ones. I mean, why let it go waste? I don't get it, but the details of the story are right there on page 3 of that newspaper. So those are the highlights basically from Republic Press this morning.
All right, let's do the Daily Guide newspaper. On the front page, Chiefs Langards face jail over land deals. I think I explained this in one of the papers yesterday. Said Dennis J, spelling it out, explaining the new law and the punishments. Kaswa cops killer plead not guilty. And I didn't sack Domolovo. He retired. That's our president speaking to the CNN, but we are well aware of how things played out. Kaswa teen killers, 19 and 16 years. There were issues with the age. I remember the Attorney General asking for clarity in terms of the age. It looks like that's
now it's been confirmed.
And so they are 19 years and 16 years of age. All right. One is well over the maturity date in terms of he's an adult. And the one who is 16 is certainly a child per the definition. All right, let's see what else on page 3. I didn't look at the cartoon yesterday in the paper, but they're apologizing if anybody took offense. They said that was not the intention. On page 8, Chris Atto marries third wife. This was
that question
making the rounds, and then it's here in the paper, and then
fine boy Chris. Fine boy Chris.
So we know about the first wife, who was a Nigerian.
What's her name again? The Nigerian.
I can't remember her name, but yeah. And then the second wife, who sadly passed. And then we're told that he's tied the knot again. We don't know if this really is true, but if it is, we certainly wish him well.
If it is, and if the picture there is anything to go by, then we know that he loves his beautiful women.
Stop listening to worldly songs. That's a call from Yalsiki to Christians. He used to be a rapper, now a pastor. He says born-again Christians cannot be patronizing secular music because it is a thing of the world. All right. Okay.
Should I push you to find out what your take is on that?
Oh, no, please don't.
I shouldn't.
No. On the back page, there's the Alhaji Bamed denial. I mentioned that a while ago on the fake currency claims. And then also the misbehavior so-called at national security, which he denies. Mourinho returns as Roma manager. Is back to Italy, apparently. And then woman official gets 10 years in sexual abuse probe. This is FIFA banning Haiti's under-20 women's team supervisor, Nella Joseph, for 10 years on Monday as part of an investigation into multiple allegations of sexual abuse of female players in the Caribbean nation. All right, that's it for the Daily Guide.
I'll go through a few more headlines very quickly. Some of them have already been put out there, so I'll ignore them. I'm looking at the Ghanaian Times newspaper now. Government sets up complaints office to investigate and sanction culprits. But this call, put Ghana first in all that you do, the South Dai NCCE. In fact, Mr. Sena Bosun Amedenu, Sena, South Dai District Director of the NCCE, has called on citizens to put the country first in all that they do. I tie it into the hashtag Fix Ghana bit. If we put Ghana first, whether as leaders or followers, I believe we shall get to that point where we'll have the sort of Ghana we dream of. So that's something I felt I should highlight. And 14 die in road crashes in Upper West region from January to April. That's it. The number represents a 100% increase over last year's figure of 7 for the first quarter of the year. The number of reported road crashes in the region also increased from 32 for the same period last year to 39 this year. Let's just stay safe on our roads. Mama, I'll just wrap up with this final headline in the BNFT. What do you think about this? Government mulls considers taxing call services of WhatsApp, Zoom, Facebook, et al. So right now, WhatsApp caller. One share.
Yeah, Brett.
It go hit you.
Yeah, Brett.
Anyway, so that's basically it for me with the papers.
Let's see, is there? Okay, not much time. So I will just go back to the Daily Graphic newspaper and there's more tales of missing babies popping up. There's last week. So this is Iyoko, the Iyoko boss, the executive director, commissioner of police, Mr. Frank Edu Poko, retired, who's been speaking to the Daily Graphic and talks about an incident that happened last week. He was speaking to the Daily Graphic last week about a January incident of a woman who had gone to the 37 military hospital and was later transferred to the Susan Clinic at Latebiokoshi in Accra by the doctor on duty, Dr. Kwashi. Susan Clinic happens to be his private clinic. She delivered her baby. She said it was a natural birth. She heard the baby cry, only to be told later that the baby's lungs were not properly formed and therefore the baby could not survive and the body had been disposed of without her knowledge and consent. There were other complaints that the commissioner or the executive director of Iyoko also talked about. This is another person who is actually secretary of the Mortuary Workers Union of Ghana, who also said that his wife had gone to deliver, not at the Suzanne Clinic, but this is another facility, had twins, and was told later that the twins couldn't make it. He had to pay some 15 Ghana cedis for them to dispose of the babies. So lots of things coming up, but apparently
I'll tell you something.
Babies are later adopted. You know, they take a lot of money for that. It's still being investigated.
This tends to be the modus operandi. I mean, I'm not saying in this specific case this is what happened, but it tends to be the modus operandi. So they bury the baby without letting you know. They tell you the baby is dead and all of that. Only a few days ago at Kwame Nkrumah Circle, a gentleman whose story I did on the same issue, he also had twins. Guess what? Same story. Oh, one of them has died. Where is the body? Produce the body. The hospital in question, one of our public facilities, till today, the matter is before Iyoko. You get it? Yeah. So I feel this is something that really ought to be looked into. I mean, this is basically selling human beings. That's what's happening.
Yeah. All right, good to know that Iyoko is certainly on this beat. We would leave you to explore the rest of the stories that we have on myjoyonline.com. This is where we have to live and make way for sports. There's plenty to talk about. Manchester City, they've booked a seat. Will Chelsea join? I hope not.
Madrid will be joining. Madrid will be joining Manchester City.
Yeah. All right, stay for sports. It's coming up right after this.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to AM Sports on AM Show. I am Muftau Nabila Abdullah. We'll be sharing stories with you on how 64 teams will be competing for places to make it to the second round of the Mtn Fa Cup, and also bring you the highlights of how Riyad Mahrez helped Manchester City to make it to the grand finale of the UEFA Champions League, and what is happening to Ghana Athletics. The World Team Relay Championship happened. Ghana finished third. Unfortunately, the country was disqualified. How did they get themselves disqualified? We'll be sharing all these with you. But first, we start with the Mtn Fa Cup, where the draw for the preliminary round was done yesterday. Communications Director of the Ghana Football Association, Henry Asante-Chum, says that there's a deliberate plan to ensure the product earns the patronage it deserves.
FA Cup will start likely latter part of this month. And you know, it is the largest competition in terms of pool and number. So the Division 2 clubs will take off at the preliminary round, and then the round of 64, the Division 1 clubs will join, and then the round of 32, the Premier League clubs will join, and then we go on and on and on and on. The preparation is that, yes, now the FA Cup will compete with the other competitions because the Premier League is doing well. The Women's League has also started and is doing quite well. I have watched about 10 games so far, and patronage and performance of the teams look very good, very impressive. Division 1, I've watched about 15 games, and also the performance is top notch. So the FA Cup, arguably the most exciting domestic competition, will have to rival these other competitions. What we have put together is a strategy, a media plan, a marketing plan to make sure when it comes back, it will have that same attention compared to the other products of the FA. Yesterday, I had a meeting with the chairman of the Mtn Fa Cup committee, Honorable Senata, to discuss what we can do as a department to push the product.
And now let's take a look at how the team have been paired. This is an opportunity for teams that play their trade in Division 2 to come up against the big boys. And in Group A, you will see Bofuaka. They will be coming up. Then there's Sunyani Reformers versus Sunyani Reformers. This, unfortunately, we will bring you the proper table of how the fixtures was done. This is Group B. We'll have Tamale Sky FC. They will be playing Tamale City. Steadfast FC will play Great Amphibians. Real Tamale United will come up against Bewa FC, and Kintampo FC will play Young Zobzia FC. And in Group C, Zuarungo, they will come against Paga Crocodiles, and Boga Soccer Masters will play Gary United. In Group D, Wasunta will play Somba Freedom Stars, and Wayasin will play Real 24 Hours FC. And this is Group E. We'll have Kumewoman United FC against Wasserman. Pacific Heroes will play River Plate Athletic Club. Thunderbolt FC will play Owerman FC. Osokwa Deportivo will play Efieja Shooting Stars, and Echikin FC will play Bakwai Youth Football Academy. And Group F, Dolphins FC will come against Sekendi Hazaka. Sky FC will play Inzima Kotoko. TTU Stars FC will play FC Samatex. Nkwantaman United will play Aboy Young Stars, and Sekendi 11 Wise will come up against Proud United. In Group G, Suebro Out Blacks come against Venovos Vipers. Winneba United FC will play Star Madrid FC. Windy Professional will play Soccer Intellectuals. Sampoman United will play Metro Stars, whilst New Edibiasi FC will play Unistar Academy. Group H, Ochiman Planners will play Kotoku Royals. Blue Skies Pelicans will play Okwao United. Okwao United made it to the final in 2016. Kade United will play Bazooka FC, whilst Far Rangers will play Crystal Palace. In Group I, Adidome United, Unity Stars rather, will play Akachi All Stars. Bebeto FC will play Agbozome Weavers, whilst Likpe Heroes will come up against Heart of Lions. This is Group J. Accra City Stars FC will play Emmanuel FC. Vision FC will play Third World FC. Atram Divisor Academy will play Stand Makers. Temayut FC, who are current leaders of Zone 3, they will come against Dambot. Young Wise FC will play Nanya FC. 2011 champions, they defeated Asante Kotoko to win it. Uncle T FC will play Teshi Unique FC, whilst Amidias Professional will play Charity Stars. Mighty Jets versus Accra Lions. Amidias Professional, that's an interesting one. They were kicked out of the Division 1 league because they did not register to compete in this ongoing campaign, and they were kicked out by the Ghana Football Association after failing to honor a single match in 12 matches. And still on Ghana FA and its products, a juvenile league was launched last week. Kofi Bewa, a renowned football scout, wants the association to invest in the right technical development of players. He also admonished for all players to be given equal opportunities.
We have a problem, but our problem is not simplistic. It is holistic. So let us tackle it from a whole point of view. Maybe we'll do it facets. The league might be one of the solutions, but let's look at all the other things that go into play. There are certain things that a developmental coach has to have that a senior coach doesn't need, because you're speaking to kids. You need to speak inspirationally to be able to motivate them both psychologically and on the pitch. I mean, in Ghana, you go when you see a kid missing a penalty and he's being asked to do 10 push-ups. You understand? So I think that the discussion is a broad one. It involves a lot of stakeholders. I mean, our big brother, Professor Bitugu, at the University of Ghana, I don't know how much of an input he had into this. I know we can't get everybody, but let us try as much as possible to have a program that would work, similar to what Right to Dream has. I mean, if Lai speaks to Tom Vernon, he would tell him, we started with Tom. From the grassroots, we're all with Tom. But because of his structure, it was Tom Vernon Football Academy first, then he metamorphosed into Right to Dream. Right. Why has he been able to get to this level and other people have failed? Because players are picked on merit, not because they are Lai's brother's son. Coaches are working according to a plan. They have projections that they have to meet.
Welcome back. It's a Wednesday, and you know we bring you AM Business. Now, it's been 3 years since the introduction of the tax stamp policy, but importers of beverage products say the tax stamp affixing station at Tema is still inefficient, costing them demurrage and losses running into thousands of cedis. Charles Aite visited the station where he came to terms with the situation there. He has more.
If it comes to big industries, this is not the way to go.
But despite all these concerns, we still have the finance minister saying that there is still no way going back. What do you have to say about this?
If there's no way going back, when we get to that point, we will cross it. Because what we are going to do on the 1st is that all the products that are not affixed with stamps, which are going to be withdrawn off the shelf, including the productions that they have done, we are going to trailer everything to Tema.
At the warehouse of the Coca-Cola bottling company, you could find, based on our searches, that there hasn't been the establishment of any form of an affixing machine ahead of the rollout of the tax stamp policy, as local manufacturers vehemently kick against this very policy. Head of Corporate Affairs at the Coca-Cola bottling plant at Spintex in Accra, Bethel Yeboah, tells Joy Business his outfit is still engaging government for a reconsideration of the tax stamp policy.
Before you would have the tax stamp on the product, it will mean that first and foremost you have acquired the affixing machine, and then you have the stamps, and for that matter you are affixing. But currently, as you know, I'm talking to you now, we have not, acquired the affixing machine.
You see tens of cartons of bottled, products here. Now, all these cartons do not have the tax stamps on them. The Coca-Cola bottling company is one of the largest local manufacturing companies in Ghana, producing close to 100,000 cartons of bottled soft drinks into the wholesale and retail market. Members from the Food and Beverage Authority. That was me in 2018, 3 years ago, reporting on the introduction of the tax stamp policy. As you have seen, the policy was kicked against by players in the beverage industry who cited its laborious manual process as a disincentive to compliance. It's the month of May 2021, 3 years on since the implementation of the tax stamp policy, and yet still problems exist. What you see now is the tax affixing center of the GRA located at Tema. Now, what is happening here is an exercise to affix the tax stamps on these beverage products. The issue now is that most of the systems here cannot meet the demand of the number of beverages that come in each and every day. The Food and Beverage Authority tells us that in a day, 20 containers of beverages come on the shores of Ghana at the Tema port. But these systems here, which are going very much slow, you can see for yourself how slow the system works in affixing these stamps on these products. This, the Food and Beverage Authority is raising concerns about, because most of their members would have to pay for demurrage, of which they say is increasing the cost of their produce and the cost of doing business in their own field. The Executive Secretary, John Agri, tells me that this poses so much profit threats to the association, the extent to which government, specifically the GRA, must come and act as soon as possible.
Well, what I'm seeing here is a mix of different things altogether. And looking at the facilities as we have here is what we saw at the beginning of the inception of the tax stamp.
So you feel nothing has changed?
Nothing has changed, and what we see here is the same facility that we see. And we are told that there is a second facility which is yet to come into the known, but then it's being used to augment what they have here, and then also to whip up the processing of the products. So that is how it is now.
So since things haven't changed, definitely it's going to have an impact on demand and supply. How are your members, reacting to this particular static nature of how things are?
What you see here, over the period through, the members have complained, especially the importers. Now what we see here is a delay, which is also adding on costs in terms of demurrage, which is no fault of the importers. Now, what the GRA is telling us is that if you look at the demand for affixing the stamp itself, because now it has invariably you cannot sell your product without affixing the stamp, and therefore the challenge of getting the stamp affixed on your product is in high demand. The queue itself is being formed. This is because what we see here has been a challenge when they switched on from Authentics, who used to supply or manage the facility, and then to Boc Press de la Rue. Now, if you look at it, what it means is that the delay has come because the stamp that they are using is facing a lot of challenges. You're going to incur more charges, or let me say more expenses, and therefore you need to also pass it on to the consumer. That is it. You need to pass.
Don't you think that is a case of what is happening now?
Now that is how it is, and therefore if importers will have to bear the cost or refraining from increasing the cost because maybe they might considering the situation as being temporary. But for importers or the businessman, we don't have time to waste. All that we want to see is that the business is running and is going smoothly. Any delayance is a cost to consumer cost, and therefore we don't expect this thing to happen at all.
A closer look at these workers unveils the use of manual labor. Workers are fixing these stamps with their bare hands. The Excise Tax Stamp Act is definitely not an introduction of a new tax. It rather requires that excise tax stamps with traceable and security-enhanced features on specified accessible commodities in order to serve as preliminary evidence of the payment of the required duties and taxes, and to provide an audit trail for tracing importers and manufacturers of counterfeited goods. Accessible products expected to be affixed with the stamps include cigarettes and other tobacco products, alcoholic beverages, non-alcoholic and carbonated drinks, bottled water, textiles, and other goods determined by the Ministry of Finance. Do you feel that most importers might be thinking that Ghana wasn't really prepared for this initiative, looking at what is happening now?
Well, initially, we have requested for digital stamping. If you look at it, digital stamping for industry, which is much more easier, and then the importers will go on affixing the stamp. We thought perhaps by now the facilities will be expanded, and therefore there wouldn't be any delayance. But you can see the way it is now, and the same facility that we are using, some of them maybe they might have a hitch here and there. And then also, as it were, changing the original, let me say, company that was dealing with the tax stamp, and then bringing in another one. It's good we are having it produced here, and therefore, whatever it is, we want to see it done in the proper way. But unfortunately, as it is now, we are being told, like I said earlier, the stamp itself is not being, let me say, compliance with the machines that they have now, and therefore the challenges that they are facing. If anything should go by, or we have anything to go by, then of course the machines will also have to be changed or upgraded to meet the quality of the stamps that they are fixing now. Otherwise, going hand manual, it's not going to help. It's going to compound the situation as it is.
So what is happening currently here is sort of a hybrid system. So I'm just seeing one automation machine working, whereas most of the things happening here is manual, and in effect it could delay the process. So how do you rate this entire system ever since it happened 3 years ago at a percentage of 100%?
I would say about 65%, if I should rate it, until government see the need, or GRA see the need to expand the facility, which we have been told that there's going to be an expansion. Definitely yes, but it all boils down to De La Rue, Boc Press, or Boc Press De La Rue, how efficient they are going to manage the system. Because GRA itself is there, and they are collecting the taxes. The LaRue is supposed to give us the sums and what quality that we want it to be implemented. Now, if they are doing so, then we expect them to do or be apt with the situation as it is. The quality of the sums that they are producing is not compatible to the machines that they have. And so therefore, they will have to come up with a solution. And that solution must be here and now. We want to see that this thing is being done flawless without any problem. If we are not able to do that, then what it means is that GRA will have to look for an alternative to ensure that we don't have any problem going the way future.
So far, agents of the Ghana Revenue Authority working and supervising work at this particular facility say that plans are far advanced for the establishment of complementary services across the regional capitals. What this means is that importers will not have to be waiting here for their products to be affixed, as so much demand is high in this regard. But for the Food and Beverage Association and members of the association, time is of the essence. The more the products wait in line to be affixed with tax stamps, the more revenue they lose out of this congestion. I'm Charles Aita reporting for Joy Business.
Now let's talk about the boiling issue of illegal logging of Rosewood as we give it extra attention with a forum later this morning at the Labadi Beach Hotel. My guest joining me via Zoom for a conversation is Daryl Bosu, his Deputy Executive Director, Arocha Ghana. Also, Seidu Jeremiah is a member of the Rosewood Task Force Committee that was set up way back in 2019. And my colleague Joseph Opoku Gakpo has done a lot of stories related to this subject. Later on, Evans Mensah, who will be anchoring the Joy Forum at the Labadi Beach Hotel this morning, will also be joining us. So let me say good morning to you, gentlemen, joining me via Zoom, if you can hear me. Can you all say hello back? Daryl, I see you smiling. Joseph, you're not smiling.
Let me smile. Let me smile. Mama, a very good morning to you. Jeremiah, good to see you. Daryl, good morning to you as well. And as always, it's nice to be on your show, Mama.
Yeah, but you're taking over my job. You sound like the number 3, but I am the number 3. Well, it's good to have all of you as we discuss this very important subject. But Joseph, let me start with you because you've traveled to some of the most hit zones and you've told several stories. Let's have a brief of your discoveries.
So this is a conversation that at JoyNews we started back in 2018, early 2018. Because it had come to our attention that a ban that was actually first announced in 2012, that because of the near extinction of the rosewood species that we have in the country with the repeated logging of it, government had taken a decision to ban any further harvesting or export of it back in 2012. It was actually eventually firmed up in 2013 by Inusa Husseini when he was the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. Subsequent to that, Neo Samuels came in as land minister. He renewed that ban. It didn't end there. Peter Mewu came in 2017, renewed the ban all the way up until Asomacheme. Despite all of that, we had gathered mainly from the northern belts, including areas like the Tumu Forest Reserve, that the rosewood trees were being harvested. And we were worried about this. The communities were complaining about how the felling was negatively impacting the environment, and to a very large extent, even situations of communities clashing over the illegal trade, that became a big matter. Not just that, they would move the trees through the farms of people and destroy them. And obviously, because this ban was internationally linked, and it was affecting our image abroad as well. So we took interest, produced one of the very interesting documentaries, Killing Our Roses, on this, sought to highlight this. We had the EIA, the Environmental Investigation Agency, follow up with its own investigation, and then eventually the committee was set up to look into it. But it's still sad that we still get reports, and there is even evidence to back it that despite all of this, the illegal trade continues to happen.
So let's bring Daryl in. Daryl, give us what the current situation is. We've heard about the bans. What is in place right now, and how does it look like?
Well, I think the latest development in respect of Rosewood was the letter that was circulated by the Ministry of Lands, still reiterating what Joseph has said, that the ban is still in place. And this was after a news from EIA that Rosewood trade was still ongoing, even though in Ghana, there was no declaration of how much was being exported. But the Chinese do keep records, and their record shows that as at 2020 this year, they were still, 2021 this year, they were still receiving rosewood from Ghana. But interestingly, if you go to the records of Ghana, you don't see anything. Because as I'm sure Jeremiah will say, they send it outside described as something else. So you don't really get to know that it's rosewood that is living, but it's actually rosewood. And at the moment, so we are now working with the ban that was still, I would say, reiterated by the ministry, that is still in place. But as you all know, it is not effective. And if you go to Upper East and Upper West, rosewood harvesting is still going on. Committees are really up in arms against most of these merchants. And this is where the problem is. So I would say we are back where we started, where there's a ban, but it's ineffective, and things continue as usual.
Jeremiah, I remember some 2 years ago, there was a high-profile Chinese rosewood merchant who was arrested. In fact, we called her the Queen of Rosewood. She was arrested, jam bail, rearrested, and she had transported, or she was in the process of transporting 2 trucks of the wood on a major highway. My point is that even though we put a ban, we have local authorities, we have security personnel, you have to transport all the way to Tema to ship it out. On the back of that arrest and the fact that other state officials were implicated, what came out of it? And whilst you try to address that, we will link it to the committee that you sat on. Hello, Jeremiah, can you hear me? Kindly unmute and speak to me, Jeremiah. Okay, I'm afraid we lost him there. Maybe I should go back to Joseph. Joseph, I was talking about this Rosewood Queen that we arrested, and her story sounds very similar to Ashawan. Just bring us an update, remind us of what had happened back then.
So it was a big issue, obviously coming on the back of the Ashawan issue, which had to do with illegal gold mining, illegal mining. To a certain extent, you know, these are traits that virtually follow along the same lines. The same Chinese folks are the ones involved in the illegal mining. The same Chinese folks are the ones involved in, to a certain extent, the illegal rosewood logging. This woman was arrested. The claim was that the police were going to do everything possible to bring justice to the residents in the areas where some of these illegal harvests happen. That never happened, like we've seen even with the illegal mining specifically. It was one of those very high-profile talks, and then nothing happened. It's actually not the first time that there's been arrest in connection with incidents like this, and nothing has happened. There's been several incidents of even Ghanaians being arrested for their role in some of this, and nothing eventually happens. And so sometimes the communities where some of these things are done, the chiefs then insist on what they call fines targeted at the people who are arrested with some of these illegal logs. And then eventually nothing happened. The claim is that politically connected people, high-profile people are the ones behind this. And in some of the communities in the Busa area where we were, the last time that we tried to dig a bit into this same complaint. In fact, I was on the ground just about, 6 or 7 months with a team from Arusha, Ghana, trying to get more details and more sense and administering a few questionnaires in the communities, trying to understand what exactly was happening. And the same complaints that we had heard back in 2018 when we were first on the ground were the same complaints that we're hearing, that when the communities find out some of these and draw the attention of the police, either the people get stopped, then they produce documents that claim that they have permit from the lands ministry to do this, then they let them go and then nothing happens. And fatigue is setting in even at the level of the committees in terms of trying to bring the perpetrators to book and stopping some of these illegal activities.
And Darrell, I'll let you handle the issue of the impacts of overlogging and why we seem to have such a big issue with Rosewood. But Jeremiah, I understand, is back connecting with us on this conversation. So let me try and see if you can hear me this time around. And talk to me about the task force that you sat on. What was your work exactly?
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Seidu Jeremiah. I can hear you now.
Good. I sat on the committee that the minister put together in 2019 as a representative of the civil society organizations. But there's one thing that is not happening in this country in our Rosewood and illegal activities. There is no honesty and trustworthiness in what we do. It is affecting everything. I was just listening to Darrell, and he was talking about how communities are complaining. They go to arrest people, and they show them documents from government. As at the time we were working on the committees to find out the illegalities, the involvement of government agencies, involvement of security agencies, involvement of government high-powered people, there were CITES documentations up to 2020, December 31st. I'm talking about 2019, August, September, October.
Yeah.
There were CITES documents that had covered beyond 2019, the whole of 2020, there were CITES documents. And somewhere in March 2020, I arrested a truck in Yizesi with fresh rosewood when they claimed they were collecting dry rosewood. And I spoke about it. And you'll be surprised names like Magdan were mentioned in connection with it, because the guy who was carrying it told me that at that time, it was only Magdan that had a permit to do all the rosewood in this country. The ban was still in force. Darrell just reminded us, government said that the ban is still in place even in 2021. How can you put a ban in 2019 on everything? Transactions, documentation, transportation, how did they call it? Logging. I forgot the term they said they used in Rosewood, but all these things you said they are in place and there are documentations.
Let's get a bit of clarity here. Was the ban also affecting those who already had permits?
That was what was stated in our terms of reference. But we arrested people during the ban and showed us those documentations. And for the Forestry Commission people at that time told us.
Hello, sir? Oh, I'm afraid we seem to have lost Mr. Seidu. Jeremiah.
So they said.
Okay. Yes,
yeah,
we lost you briefly. Go ahead.
Yes, they give the documents, and the documents are not practically functioning. You go to the field, the people have the documents, you ask the government says the documents are not working. Meanwhile, the people are sending them out. All the rosewood that we impounded as a committee during that time, they've all left this country. 3 days ago, Rosewood, I went to a plant and they were doing Rosewood and they had the document, 2021, December. Where is the honesty and trustworthiness as a nation? And
so can we just go back a little bit? You said you impounded Rosewood, but they are all out of the country. How does that happen?
Tackling the issue of Rosewood. And we need to be asked in handling this case. We cannot say a ban and be issuing documentations that are legal for people to carry and deal with Rosewood business. For me, I think...
I was asking a curious, case of you impounded and then they found their way out of the country. I was asking how.
Oh, one of the people told me that they gave them a fine. A 40-footer container, he paid 30,000. A 20-footer container, he paid 15,000. And he showed me receipts, which I took pictures of. And once he paid the fine, in ADB, he paid the fine, those containers left.
So what was the purpose of the committee? I mean, why the committee in the first place if the people would just simply receive a fine and then they are made to take the woods away?
I regretted for being a part of the committee because at that time the government wanted to use us to whitewash what was said. And I can tell you confidently that information that we got on the field was removed from the report. We were blocked from getting access to some information. We were not allowed into some other areas. And the committee itself didn't go to certain places. Whilst we were working as a committee, there was logging ongoing in the Upper West, and one of the hotspots, Olemoni area. But the committee didn't go there. So for me, the honesty and truthfulness of this story must start from government and traditional leadership. Because there's no honesty and truthfulness in the government, there's no honesty and truthfulness in the traditional leadership. This menace, we can do anything. I don't see a solution to it until our leaders tell us the truth and they are honest to us. You can't ban something. And as I speak to you,
Okay, so we seem to be having disruptions in that connection, particularly to Mr. Saidu Jeremiah. Just a bit of background. Hello, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll come to you. I just wanted to establish the fact that this committee was set up after some government officials were implicated and, in the whole controversy of missing Rosewoods. The ministerial investigative body on the EIA report submitted its findings. This was the task force that you sat on, Mr. Jeremiah, correct? Hello, Mr. Saidu Jeremiah?
Yes, please. That was the committee I sat on.
But I remember that the findings were not made public. If my memory serves me right, I'm not sure exactly what the ministry said afterwards. I'm hearing a lot of details from you today, but was there a public announcement of your findings?
The ministry took advantage of the coronavirus. There was no public announcement. And by the time civil society put pressure on them, and some of us put pressure on them that if they don't tell the world, the nation what happened, we will release the draft reports that we had and give it to them. Then they came up and said that the committee didn't find any government institutions culpable about this. And you could find even fire service officers, fire service, police, custom officers, internal revenue. Everybody was involved. As for the forestry people, let's take it at that time, the forestry people, they were legally doing it. And if you went to their offices, I have conversations, I have videos, I have discussions with them. They will tell you, yes, once the paper is given, it is legal. All these government security agents, including BNI, they were involved. Because most of the Rosewood I arrested as an individual, I arrested as a committee member. Some of them were being escorted from Hamile to Tema Port. And when we went to the Tema Port, there was no single report. There was no single document on Rosewood. All the Rosewood left this country as sawdust, charcoal, scrap, cashew, shea nut. You mention it.
Well, stay with me because you're part of this conversation. Darryl, I want us to go back to why Rosewood is such a big deal, and we're talking about overlogging, and we're even talking about a ban.
Yes, so rosewood, as we all know, is a tree that is distributed across savanna regions of Ghana. And not only that, you also find it towards the Togo, the Voltarian side as well, all the way even as you move down to the transition area, Kintampo areas, you find some rosewood in these areas. And the reason why rosewood logging is really detrimental to the environment, first of all, is the fact that it's one of the few trees which is maintaining crown cover within the savanna area. Now, if you know the savanna area very well, it's almost shrubland now. You don't see very tall trees beyond 10 meters. The only few trees you see are rosewood, another one called Absilia, and then you are likely to come across some mahoganies and also some skybar, what we call the silk cotton tree. These trees are very crucial in maintaining the microclimates in what is left of the savanna region. So the deliberate salvaging, or as the government called it, where they were harvesting rosewood from the landscape across the region, was really detrimental in the fact that it was affecting the microclimate environment. It was also affecting the ability or the services that it was providing. One crucial thing, if we realized during the period of the intensive harvesting, was the fact that rosewood was a very key forage for a lot of pollinators in the savanna region. So you are looking at food security issues here. And you also find rosewood also lined up at most of the areas where you have rivers and streams. So for as long as they were continuing to harvest these trees, they were exposing the water bodies and all of that to evaporation and too much drying up. And if you observed also, there has been very recent issues where communities have complained about rainstorms and excessive winds, and all because these trees, which are serving as windbreaks, have been felled, and we don't have quite some replacement. So if you move beyond the savanna region, all the way to the upper west region and go to the upper east, rosewood trees are really, really crucial. Because if you look at the tree height and the density and all of that, it's the only best wind breaks that you can find in these areas. It's also holding the soil together, and the forage, as it drops, serves as food for a lot of biodiversity that lives also in these regions. And now, one other thing why it's also very crucial, for as long as the merchants have seen that rosewood is a merchantable timber commodity, they will finish it and they will also jump onto another species. And this is actually the trend. And this was really also why we're worried. Once you start harvesting in the north, in the dry savanna regions, you come across and experience the density of the tree species that are there, and you want to harvest everything. So right from rosewood, they have also jumped onto other species like Absilia. They've jumped onto other species like Absilia they call pawpaw. So most of the pictures you are showing on the screen, you see with a ring, a white ring around the diameter, that is Absilia. Once they finish harvesting the rosewood, they've now jumped onto these other hard species, and it's not really ordering very well for the community's ability to build resilience in the face of climate change. And this is why rosewood harvesting, as was started in 2008 because of the Blue Hydro Dam, and its continuous harvesting has posed big challenges for us as people who are very interested in the health of the environment, as well as the health of the people living in some of these vulnerable areas.
And Joseph, it is indeed that there are people who are not doing their work, but there are other, persons who wish they could do their work. They're simply helpless because they don't have the right equipment. Tell us about this aspects of your discovery in terms of those local authorities who simply looked on because they were helpless, they didn't have the right resources.
In fact, not just them, even officials of the Forestry Commission, although repeatedly they've been implicated to a certain extent in some of these investigations. When you're on the ground, the repeated complaint that you get is that they claim that they don't have educated personnel, they don't have educated equipment. The community say they impound some of these rosewoods, their traditional leaders step in, but eventually the powers that be don't then allow for things to happen. And Mama V, earlier you were alluding to what exactly led to this particular investigative report that the Environmental Intelligence Agency did, which eventually then resulted in the setting up of the committee. I just pulled out that report just to read a bit of it for you. This is a report that was published in March 2019. The Environmental Intelligence Agency, which is one of the world-renowned environment groups, sent investigators to Ghana after JoyNews had done quite some expose on the issue of Rosewood. And this is what they found. Undercover investigations by EIA reveal that powerful Chinese and Ghanaian traffickers are still harvesting and shipping rosewood out of the country through the help of the ruling party members and complicity at all government levels. The investigation revealed that New Patriotic Party members and their compatriots in government have established an institutionalized scheme fueled by bribes to mask the illegal harvest, transport, exports, and illegal licensing of the timber. And then the report goes on to say that NPP members and their cronies are using a number of tactics to get the illegal trade going, including fraudulent use of salvage permits, misdeclaration of timber species, use of escorts to deal with control points, forging of official documentations, and retrospective issuance of various permits. And then this other interesting aspect of the report as well, the EIA report again claimed that the investigators found that Mr. Nana Kofi Edu, who was then the executive director of the Wildlife Division of the Forestry Commission, allegedly received percentages of the value of the rosewood exported illegally, and that he was allegedly being bribed to sign export permits illegally. And, the EIA guys then published a number of videos that they claimed to back this particular allegation of theirs. So this was actually what eventually triggered the work of that committee as the minister set up in 2019. And then when the investigation was done, the officials of the Forestry Commission were cleared, and the committee's report, which was actually chaired by the now renominated Deputy Minister Designate for Lands and Natural Resources, Benito Usubio, then concluded that the claim that there was some political party involvement in all of this was actually not true. Well, we had all demanded evidence from the EIA that, particularly with the bit having to do with the political party folks, they should name names and show us all the evidence. But then, of course, they insist they used undercover investigators to get what they'd done. So then they couldn't have gone ahead to actually put out names. So that's the other bit of it. And just to again put it in context. So when the EIA study in particular made mention of how this illegal business had been ongoing even after the said ban, to put it in context in terms of the earnings. So according to the data that they've gathered, since 2019 March, when the latest ban was actually announced, more than 205 million kilograms of rosewood, equivalent to $128.2 million US, have actually been exported from the country to China between March 2019 and now. That's what has happened. So it's big money that's actually going out there. It's a lot of dollars that are going into this space. People are probably making their cut from it, which is ending up fueling all of this and making the local community folks, those on the ground trying to help deal with this problem, somehow helpless in terms of bringing it under control.
And Ms. Seydu Jeremiah, you said earlier that, portions of the reports that you issued after your work was not included or were taken out. Can you still remember exactly the aspects that were taken out? Hello, Jeremiah? Do we have him, please? Kindly unmute so we can hear you, sir.
Okay. One of the aspects that were taken out of the report was the issue about we not finding any government official culpable. That was not true. We found a lot of forestry officers. We found a lot of government officers. I mentioned that we even found fire service officers, police officers. As I speak to you now, this morning I got home at 2:30 a.m. because I was tracking Rosewood and got my farm belt cut and the truck left me. A lot of people, I sat by a police barrier, and the police demanded a certain amount of money, and the driver had to pay. And when I checked that truck, it had all the documentation that they needed to have from government, including a certificate of conveyance from forestry.
So we can't call them illegal then? We can't say they're doing an illegal act then?
No, they are not doing an illegal act. The people are not doing an illegal act. The Rosewood people have permits, they have all the documents, they have conveyance, and they carry them, you know, when an ordinary person like me stops them, they just show me the documentations. And to my surprise, sometimes they show me documentations, including my own kingdom. The people I look up to, their receipts are given. So what do you do? That's why I said that we need to handle this matter with the most honesty and truthfulness we need in this country. Otherwise, this thing will not take us anywhere.
So it sounds like we have a ban, but there's no ban on the ground, really.
You see, the government puts a ban in place, then they deceive you that there's a ban. Then they do the Rosewood more. During the ban, the Rosewood that left this country was more than when even the system is opened. So for me, they should take off the ban. The ban is not in place. They do that, then everybody's mind is on the ban, and the thing is happening. Please, JoyNews, I said this morning, 2:30 a.m. Rosewood is happening this morning, 2:30 a.m.
Let me ask Daryl, and I'll bring Evans in. He's anchoring our Joy Forum later this morning at 10 at the Labadi Beach Hotel. But Daryl, what would be the consequences if we didn't have a ban at all? Tell us about what would be happening if we didn't have a ban.
Well, I think right from 2008 all the way to 2012, when before the first ban, we know what was happening. And I will say that we knew at that point that, wait, the government was legally giving out permit for people to harvest rosewood. And seeing how it got out of hand, they decided to bring the ban. If we go ahead and take off the ban, then we are somehow legitimizing an already illegal activity that is decimating our environment. So for me, I think we need to maintain the ban, and then all of us work together and make sure that we bring all of these people who are found culpable to book. And I want to say a little bit of something to what Joseph said about the issue of logistics with the Forestry Commission and staff. Yes, that challenge is there with every state institution you have in this country. But the issue of Rosewood is a deep-seated, I would say, executive-level negligence in ensuring compliance of the laws of the land. And that is what it is. Because right from the beginning, we recognize that, look, there was a development in 2008, Bui Hydro Dam, we need to remove merchantable trees from the development area. It was done through legal means. And then after, also the Fufusu Solar Road, about 127 kilometers, further permits were issued. Since then, the North had not been spared the ravages of rosewood logging. And that for me is a problem. So the government has used a legitimate action through salvage permitting to continue to perpetuate an illegality in the North. We should bear in mind that the northern region before this period had not been the center of excessive logging as we see it now. All because in policy, we recognize that it was a fragile landscape and there was no need to allow any sort of logging to continue in that area as has been. So it's a big problem. And I believe that we should still maintain the ban and make sure that the things that are responsible for people perpetuating this action are addressed. And like Jeremiah said, we need the government to be truthful and to act in good faith for the people who are found, who are more vulnerable and who are exposed to the vulnerabilities of these illegal actions going on in the environment.
Evans, good morning. This is certainly a big boiling issue, very much like the mining. There may be very big people involved. Tell us about our forum later this morning and who you are engaging.
So we're definitely bringing those who have been involved in the trade somewhat in terms of authorities dealing with it, but also those who have been working.
Hello, Evans.
Yes, sorry, I lost you briefly. I mean, bringing all the stakeholders together for a conversation today, obviously with the Ghana Legal Rosewood Trade Sealing the Leakages Forum. In essence, we've been talking about this, and Joseph had led these investigations across the country, trying to find out what the problem is. It is obvious on the back of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources investigation, they formed a committee under the former minister. They themselves found that although the ban was in place, the rose was still being harvested under the guise of the salvage permits. We are going to go back to that particular document because in that document there were recommendations made that had not been followed, and some of them will use the COVID-19 because this was in 2019. They use COVID-19 as an excuse, but it cannot be an excuse because the northern parts of the country has been devastated. You know how I love the outdoors. Reading that document, one of the things that struck me was a place like a Mole National Park. It's currently one of those areas that is being threatened because of the harvesting of rosewood. So we want to try and get to the bottom of it and see if we can hold the torchbearer, the duty bearers accountable, and so we can get some action and follow up, I guess, most importantly after the forum, how the commitments that have been made are going to be implemented.
Let me ask Jeremiah and Daryl, and then, of course, Joseph. What do you think we can do differently with this forum? We have a huge opportunity. We have, huge personalities showing up, policymakers. How can we turn this around, Jeremiah?
I think there is good news now. The good news is that the landowners have risen up in the Savannah region. What we need to do is to get Bono East, Northeast, Northern region, Upper West and Upper East for the landowners to rise up against the illegalities. The politicians in Savannah region have also risen up against it. So let's see if we can get the politicians from these other regions that I've mentioned to rise up against it. Once the landowners have risen up against it, the law in this country says that the landowner can throw away any document given by government forestry commission to work on a non-forest area. So once the people have the knowledge, once the people have the information, and once the people know that they are not benefiting from it, and the leadership, traditional and political, in the Savannah ecological area is rising up against it, for me, there's good hope. And there's a great leadership now in Forestry Commission. I have interacted with the new leadership, and they are more action-oriented than the previous one. So for me, there's hope, there's good hope. We just need to support and harness the support that we have gotten from the traditional and political leadership to act now instead of talking and the silence they kept before.
Okay. Daryl?
Yes, I see you have the medium and the platform to carry the information forward. Most of the time we have frontline environmental issues happening all around us, but we really lack the voice to get these challenges out there. And for me, I think that with this dialogue, the forum that we're going to organize, let's make sure it goes wide, it's a spread all over the country. Let's keep bringing back the issues to the screens. Let's keep bringing back the issues to the table for discussion until the agencies and the politicians who are supposed to make sure that the right thing is done, they get up and do their work as expected. I think this is one of the issues that also need fixing in this country.
And Joseph?
So, 2 quick points. First of all, usually when the conversation is happening, there is the reference to CITES permit. It's actually a convention, an international treaty that Ghana is a signatory to. And back in 2017, the said convention actually listed rosewood as an endangered species, which would mean that all over the world, it's all its different species trading them is supposed to be banned, and you need a special permit before then you're able to trade in them. So the question about, so then why don't we just leave the ban? If we leave the ban, chances are that you can't do legal business with it, because all over the world, all the species, there is that ban that on them. What can this forum do differently? I think Samuel Abu-Jinapor is the new Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. He's been in office for just a few months. We had the president take his presidency on the line when it comes to the illegal mining fight. We saw what it became. Mr. Jinapor says he's reactivating and renewing and re-energizing that fight against illegal mining. I think this is a good opportunity for him to pay attention to the Rosewood space as well. A lot of it is happening in his own backyard in Damongo. Repeatedly, Jeremiah and his group have closed down and helped the former regional minister close down a rosewood processing factory in the Damongo area that keeps coming back into business. The minister needs to show us that he has the balls to get the work done and begin in his own backyard, Damongo, and deal with those involved in this illegal business there, and then extend it to the rest of the countries. I think having such a forum, raising the issues, drawing his attention and that of this institution, then provides an opportunity for him to then jump into the fray and say, I'm probably ready to stick my ministerial position and even my position as MP on the line, that I'm going to deal with this. Otherwise, then, well, maybe the guns need to be turned on him as well, separately, in terms of him standing in line of fire when, the residents complain and demand action for an end to this illegal trade. So I expect him to take advantage of this opportunity that the EIA, JoyNews are providing by bringing up this issue and making it a topical issue again. And he should run with it and clamp down on those involved and set examples of those who are still going ahead with this illegal business.
Thanks, Joseph. Finally, with you, Evans, you've mentioned those who will be there, the objective for this forum. But what's the plan? It starts at 10, ends at what time? And how can people get interactive? Can they still come to the venue?
I mean, this is strictly by invitation. It's a forum of in-person 60 people. But thankfully, we're going to be streaming live on all our social media platforms. It's going to be live on television and on radio. It starts at 10, and we expect this to run up until 12 p.m. So this is a 2-hour slot. And wherever you are, and this is not only a Ghanaian problem, it is an international problem. It is one of the problems that Ghana is almost exporting to the rest of the world. Because if you look at the countries that we export our illegally harvested rosewoods to, it's across, really. And so wherever you are, you can participate. I mean, just get interactive with us on our many social media platforms and share your experiences. And we're going to ask the questions. And as Joseph said, we want to throw as much light on this as possible. Rosewood harvesting is happening. In last year, January, traveling to the north, I saw trucks load of rosewood on the highway, and this is not far away from police checkpoints. And so it's happening. And we hope that we can put some spotlights on this on all our platforms today. And by the end of it, people get uncomfortable when you throw the sunshine on something that you're doing illegally. And we want to do that, make them uncomfortable and push the political powers to act.
Great. Well, thanks, Jeremiah. Thanks to you, Daryl. Thanks, Joseph. And thanks, Evans. That conversation will be at the Labadi Beach Hotel, 10 a.m., strictly by invitation, just as Evans said. So if you don't have any invitation, don't worry. It will be live here on television, on radio, on myjoyonline.com. It will be live on YouTube and Facebook as well. And you can be following and also interacting with the panel later this morning. That's the end of this conversation. Watch out for the big one that comes up at 10 a.m. I've got some birthday dedications before I leave. So it's your birthday today. Derek Goza of MedLab is from your brother. He says, thanks for always having his back. A brother like you is a blessing for life. So enjoy your birthday today, Derek Goza. And also, it's your birthday, Poma. Oh, our own Poma. Poma is a text editor, and it's her birthday today. This is also to Mavis. And I'll come back to that. But here's also another one. Rebecca Intiamwa Boateng of Tema Community 11. It's your birthday today. It's from Fruit Ike Adi. Enjoy your birthday. If it's your day today, we wish you the very best. God's blessings and love it. Stay with us.
Thank you for staying with us on the AM show. Now, we talk vaccinations. At least 1.1 billion doses of coronavirus vaccines have been administered around the world. Data from 218 locations show. Currently, 7 coronavirus vaccines are now in use in at least one country. Notably, Israel has been the fastest to roll out inoculations. Now, what was the Israeli COVID-19 vaccination story as of the 3rd of May? I'll tell you. Total doses per 100 residents, 115.6%. of population vaccinated, 59.7%. Fully vaccinated, 55.9%. And total doses given, 10.5 million. Now, mind you, Israel has a total population of 8.7 million. It gives you a picture of what this country has been doing and getting right. Now, joining us for the discussion so that we can actually get into the Israeli situation and learn what we can from them is Dr. Asher Salman. He is Director, Department of International Relations at Israel's Ministry of Health. Dr. Salman, I think it's fitting to say good morning. I know Israel is 3 hours ahead of us, so good morning to you, Dr. Salman. Dr. Salman, please unmute.
Yeah, in Israel.
Great. So it's a pleasure having you. Now, let's kickstart the conversation by finding out what the journey has been since 2020 when, COVID-19 hit, then since December that you've been vaccinating till now. What has been the vaccination story as far as Israel is concerned?
Well, it has to do with meticulous planning, negotiating at time with the companies, governmental commitment, full commitment, meaning Prime Minister being personally involved in negotiations and initiations of this type of contracts. And then, of course, preparing the public by good media campaign, public diplomacy, and tackling worries and certainly tackling anti-vax ideas.
Now, leaders have been crucial in the fight against COVID-19. What has been the specific role that you would say Benjamin Netanyahu has played in ensuring that Israel has got to this point?
Well, he was personally involved in the negotiation with the company, not, dealing with technical issues, but certainly bringing to the table the most senior partners from the other side and putting it very clear that the country is fully committed to do whatever is needed to be able to vaccinate as soon as possible. You have to understand that it's not only purchasing, the companies also want the confidence that you are well prepared, that you have syringes and vials, that you have a clear strategy of how to vaccinate the population, and you know how to collect the adverse events and other efficacy points, which are so important for everybody.
Now, Dr. Salman, in April, Israel was able to do something. For the first time in 10 months, you didn't record any COVID-19 related deaths. Have you been able to continue with that? Is that still the situation? Has anything changed?
Well, vaccines are important, actually extremely important, but still you have to take some additional steps. And that mostly concern properly controlling entry to the country. Because the main threat is by the new molecular variants of the virus. And unfortunately, some of them seem to be a bit less sensitive to the vaccines. So we are very much concerned with vaccine resistancy. And of course, when you are able somehow to close issues, and it's not real herd immunity, but create a of a minimal number of new cases in the country, if you know how to properly control your borders, you could, for quite a while, keep the situation very good. We see even countries like Australia New Zealand, China, which do not have extremely high numbers of vaccinated, or percentage of vaccinated citizens, but are still coping very well by strongly somehow controlling the borders.
So part of the question was, and I just want you to highlight for me, is Israel still recording any COVID-19 related deaths? Are any people still dying when it comes to COVID-19?
In single digit, it could happen. We still have around 60 individuals which are on ventilators in hospitals. Some of them are in critical condition. So unfortunately, we would see some more cases of this in the near future. But I'm still talking about days with no case of this and days with a single or two cases of this in comparison to a max 100 or more in the top of the third wave.
Now, Israel has done quite a lot. I'm just going to quote your health minister here, Yuli Edelstein. He says, "This is a tremendous achievement for the health system and Israeli citizens. Together, we are eradicating the corona virus." But here's the reality. Here in Africa, a lot of countries are running out of these vaccines. In fact, 7 countries have completely run out of vaccines. I know in Israel, you've depended on the Pfizer and BioNTech versions of the vaccines. But have you run out at any point? And if so, how have you coped? How have you managed the situation?
We did not run out because as being a small country, we could plan with the company the exact shipment dates and then plan the parallel campaign in sense of, in one hand, running the campaign and always still leaving some extras. One of the decisions that we have made was to give the second dose exactly as on time by the manufacturer protocols, meaning that we were saving a sufficient amount of doses in order to be able to stand with this principle. Now, in a point, we were able to find some flexibility. If we would know that the shipment is a delay for a single day, we could play a bit. But in no point we had to stop the campaign due to shortage of vaccines. So, again, we are a small country, as you have mentioned. I'm sure that with much larger countries, which are much larger population, which with I would say, a large size of the country, with large rural areas, these challenges are extremely significant.
So, Dr. Salman, you would put it down to proper planning, which has ensured that Israel has been able to keep up in terms of vaccination. Planning is the key.
Indeed, but it's planning on one hand and then still keeping a sense of flexibility. I'll give you an example. We did create a situation of a standby list for vaccination points, which seems to have some extra doses toward the end of the day. And we would use this system to send on a standby basis first responders like policemen, fire brigades, ambulance driver, etc., which could come in a very short notice, and in that sense to diminish loss of unused doses. So you need some flexibility. So for instance, we were encouraging everybody to pre-register for an appointment. Officially, you had to pre-register to come. But still, if somebody would queue at the end of the day without pre-registering, we would still vaccinate him. So you have to play this game.
And a very interesting, point you make there. But I also know that Israel has basically been the world's guinea pig when it comes to the pre-trials for the vaccines, and that you pre-ordered some of these vaccines. Is that also accounting for the fact that you've had a stable supply of COVID-19 vaccines? Is it because of the trials that were conducted?
Well, it's not. There was no any official trials. The big trials were done. I mean, the phase 3 trials were done in other places, not in Israel. What was in Israel is known to be a post-marketing trial or a phase 4 trial, meaning that now in real life we are testing on millions of people. First, the efficacy of the vaccine, and second, the safety of the vaccine. And that gives an important piece of data to the company, certainly, but also for the entire world in understanding better safety challenges with these vaccines.
Now, here in Ghana, our health minister recently told us that there are 3 entities that are willing to get on board when it comes to vaccine production. I know that in Israel you've had plans for same to even have homegrown vaccine production. How far have you gone with that? Have you started that drive yet? If not, how soon are you looking at achieving that?
Well, there is an Israeli vaccine. There are two Israeli vaccines now under development, but one is going to start phase 3 trials quite soon. I heard in Argentina and a few other countries. That is a viral vehicle vaccine, in many senses a bit similar to AstraZeneca. And the second effort is to open a vaccine production line in Israel. Now, we are not doing it solely. We are discussing this issue with some friendly countries which have the same challenges as us, and trying to create a kind of an alliance of manufacturing, which you could have an approach in 3 or 4 different countries and then support each other in a day of need. Now, we are not talking only about COVID-19. Hopefully, COVID-19 will be dealt properly quite soon all over the world, and we will see somehow the end of this terrible pandemic. But we have to think ahead, and we must take the lessons for the next pandemic, whether it will happen in a decade or in a century, but we must prepare better than we did for COVID-19.
Doc, how important would you say having this capability, this capacity to produce vaccines is? Today it is COVID-19, but we know viruses keep mutating, the bacteria keep developing, and we could face similar, issues years down the line, a decade down the line. How important is this capacity to produce vaccines for countries across the world?
I think so. I think one of the main lessons is, on one hand, the innovative world was able to produce good products in no time, in few months. That was not presidential. I mean, unbelievable. If you would ask me a year ago or a year and a half ago, is it even possible to imagine that we'll have vaccines in less than a year? I'd say no way. But it happened. But then, of course, we found out that production is a complicated issue. Companies are doing a lot, but it is not enough. I do believe that governments and international organizations as well should go into this issue of proper mass production for the global world.
So very interesting conversation we're having here. Now, let me also just cite this bit because Eyal Leshem, a director at Israel's largest hospital, the Sheba Medical Center, said recently that Israel was close to reaching herd immunity. Now, per the figures I put out before the start of this conversation, you've not got to the 65 to 70% that the World Health Organization says is required for herd immunity. How close is Israel to achieving herd immunity? What are your scientists saying?
Well, I would express my own opinion. I do not think that the term herd immunity is a correct term for COVID-19. It's for various scientific reasons. COVID-19 do not behave like classical herd immunity-related viruses like measles, etc. But I do believe that when you reach a certain point, there is a kind of a semi-herd immunity, and since that the disease is pushed down, you would see here or there some cases, but you could go back to normal life. Now, how close we are? So we are now at the 60% figure, and we would, when we'll start vaccinating adolescents, I do believe next month, or maybe even later this month, or the beginning of next month, we would quite soon reach the 70% figure. It is a big challenge to convince parents to come and vaccinate their children, and that would be even a much more complicated challenge when we'll start to vaccinate very young children. Again, there's a lot of anti-vax ideas in the media, and many concerns, and in one hand, of course, people tend to say, well, for children, it is usually a mild disease. We have to answer it in a very honest way. We have to say what we know, we have to admit in what we don't know, and we have to explain in this balance between the risk of the disease and potential risk of vaccines to show how beneficial is it to indeed vaccinate everybody, including the children. And it's actually going to be our public diplomacy challenge for the next month or two.
Okay, so public diplomacy challenge. It is interesting because I know you have plans of inoculating, vaccinating children aged between 12 and 15, but you've been waiting for the US FDA approval of the drugs for that to happen. Has that approval happened yet for the vaccines?
So
could you repeat that?
As much as I can recall, I read that yesterday or the day before, FDA did granted an emergency approval for Pfizer-BioNTech vaccination for 12 and above. And in that sense, our regulatory system would go through the process, which is the one in Israel. It would be a swift process. I do believe that in 2 to 3 weeks, it would be also registered in Israel for 12 and above.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a bit of a sensitive question. COVID-19 is a humanitarian crisis of sorts. We know that in Palestine, some 60,000 doses were received in March, which is pretty small. Is Israel, with all your capabilities and all the feats you're achieving in terms of your population, are you supporting Palestine in any way when it comes to the vaccination drive? And if not, are you willing to do so? Palestine is suffering a lot of losses.
Well, we certainly do so. And it is part of my role, and I'm dealing with issues of COVID-19 with the Palestinians from the first day of this pandemic. Regarding vaccines, we did donate the Palestinians a numerous amounts of vaccines. We actually had vaccinated all Palestinian workers, both ones that are coming into Israel and one of which are working at the West Bank. We did vaccinate medical personnel, and we did facilitate and assist with international contracts for the Palestinians. I can't go into details now, but I think in the next few days you would hear about a massive, massive amount of vaccines which are going to very soon enter the West Bank and Gaza Strip.
All right, so to wrap up the conversation, there's a whole lot that Israel is doing. Our leaders are watching, we're all listening, and there's a whole lot that we can also grasp. But what would you say are the takeaways, the lessons that the rest of the world, even the likes of India, can learn from the Israeli example when it comes to technology, when it comes to even, personnel on the ground doing this work? What are the lessons you feel Israel has to give the rest of the world?
I would not speak about technology, but rather about organization. And I do believe that COVID-19 is exactly the situation that should be centrally managed. And actually in federal countries like India, Germany, a few others, it is a big challenge. Second, you need to bring into the table all main stakeholders. I'm talking about, beside Ministry of Health, the police, the military, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Internal Security, ambulance services, hospital management, and many, many others. You must feel that they are part of an properly orchestrated campaign, which is run and held in a very decent way. Now, then, of course, you need to collect data and IT systems that allow you to do so. I did not go into this issue, but for instance, our COVID-19 vaccination campaign was totally paperless. Everything was done through our central IT system. So despite this, where you got your vaccine, it was immediately registered in the national registries, but at the same time, it would appear at your personal electronic medical record. So that is another issue. And then, of course, again, meticulous planning and commitment, a central commitment of the government to do whatever is needed to reach and to find, I would say, the proper sources to organize what is needed to be organized. And believe me, it is really cost effective. Each of national closure costs much more than, some differences in prices of vaccines.
Well, Dr. Salman, it's been a pleasure having you join us this morning, and we wish you and your country the very best in this drive. We thank you for your time, Dr. Salman.
And I really want to wish Ghana all the best, and I'm sure that the Ghanaian people are going to properly fight this pandemic, and I really hope for a better day for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you once more for your time. Dr. Asha Salman is Director, Department of International Relations at Israel's Ministry of Health. He joined us for that conversation. But when we return, it's all about the National Science and Math Quiz 2021. The regional championships commence today. Reigning champions Presec Legon take on Achimota, Accra Academy, and 10 others in the National Science and Math Quiz 2021 Greater Accra Championships. There's more of that and action on day 2 coming up on the AM show. Do stay. And here we are, National Science and Math Quiz. Maxwell Agbagba is on hand to walk us through what exactly has been happening. Maxwell, if you can hear me, do walk us through what the latest is as far as the National Science and Math Quiz is concerned. I know you are at the Accra College of Education. What's happening there this morning?
Exactly, Benjamin. So we are done with the regional qualifiers. That was for 2 days. So far, 9 schools from the Greater Accra region have qualified to the 2021 National Championship scheduled for October. Now, what is going to happen is that we'll have 4 schools joining the 9 schools, making 13 schools from the Greater Accra region. So we are done with the regional qualifiers. Something big is about to happen today, which is the Greater Accra Regional Championship. Now, in this championship, we're going to have the 4 seeded schools from the Greater Accra region and the 9 winning schools, the 9 schools that won the regional qualifiers and gained qualification to the main competition sometime in October. But I have Stephen Adjo here with me. He's one of the coordinators for the NSMQ. He's going to tell me more about what has happened, break it down, for us. You're welcome to JoyNews.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So tell us more about the Greater Accra Regional Championship. What really is it about?
So the Greater Accra Regional Championship, first and foremost, is sponsored by Absa Bank. They are the main sponsor for the competition, and it involves the schools who have qualified from the regional qualifiers, and then the seeded schools from the previous year's edition. So we had 4 schools, that's Achimota School, St. Margaret Mary, Accra Academy, and Presec Legon. They are the 4 seeded schools, and they'll be joined by the 9 qualifiers. That's Holy Trinity Cathedral, Chemu Senior High School, St. Thomas Aquinas, Ashaman SHS.
Quite a number of them. I'll actually run them through the pictures.
So these schools would come together in a competition. That's a championship, which, as I mentioned, sponsored by APSA, and for which we determine the regional champion. Last year, Presec Legon, they won the regional championship in Accra, and they went on to win the national championship. So, and I think 2 years ago or 3 years ago, St. Augustine also won the regional championship and then went on to win the national championship.
So they won the Central Regional Championship?
Exactly, and then they went on to win the national championship. So, I don't know whether the story will be told again this year, that whoever wins the regional championship would also go on to win the national championship this year. We're having the championship in the whole country, and so we're starting with the Greater Accra region first and foremost.
Okay. Thank you. But before you go, how's the qualifiers been like for you, the regional qualifiers?
Well, it's been quite interesting. I must say that I've been quite impressed with the kind of performance that the schools showed as compared to previous years, for which they also deserve to have won or to have qualified. But people are doing a lot of work. We have schools traveling the length and breadth of this country over the couple of months, just preparing themselves. So it showed in the contest that we had during the qualifiers. And so I believe that moving on to regional championship, something great, something big is going to happen. And I'm sure with Absa Bank solidly behind the program, something great is going to happen.
Thanks so much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So now, Benjamin, let me quickly run you through the contest that we have for today. Some of the contests that you want. Presec Legon against Odogono SHS and then Ashaiman SHS. We also have Achimota School, Our Lady of Mercy Senior High School, and then St. Thomas Aquinas SHS. This is a contest to look out for because Achimota School, we know sometime last year in the 2020 competition, they missed out on the grand finale by just 1 point. In fact, I remember in that semi-final contest, Adisado College had 21 points, Achimota School had 20 points, and then Kata Senior High Technical School had 17 points. They missed out on the grand finale by just 1 point. Today they are coming to the Greater Accra Regional Championship. You definitely want to expect some kind of competition from them. St. Thomas Aquinas Senior High School, they qualified yesterday right here in this room. They qualified for the 2021 national competition. Now, one day school to have won the National Science and Maths quiz. Coming up against two-time winners like Achimota School, you really would want to wait and see what's going to happen. But St. Thomas Aquinas, yesterday we saw them, they qualified with 59 points, one of the highest that we've seen for the regional qualifiers. It will be an interesting, contest here later today. The Achimota School, Olam SHS, St. Thomas Aquinas. We also have Accra Academy, Holy Trinity Cathedral, Tema Methodist Senior High School, and then Chemu Senior High School. We also have St. Margaret Mary SHS, West Africa SHS, and then Ganata SHS. We can wait for the contest to start here, and we'll be right here to give you updates as and when they happen on our bulletins, Benjamin.
Update, and we'll come to you later for much more. But there were jubilant and ecstatic scenes at the Upper West Regional Library after WA Senior High School answered a tiebreaker correctly to book a spot at the national tournament in Accra, slated for October. They joined St. Francis Xavier, Drapa, SHS, Canton, SHS, and St. Francis Girls School to make up the 5 teams which will represent the region in the tournament. Back in school, it was a hero's welcome. A guard of honor was actually mounted for the contestants who made history by qualifying to the national tournament for the first time in 20 years. Manoa Krante reports.
It's moving steadily at 15 meters per second along a straight line. Yes.
And that was the mood at the Upper West Regional Library in WA at the end of the 2-day qualifiers, which saw the region's top high schools battle for a place in the national tournament. WA Senior High School narrowly secured the final slot to join St. Francis Xavier Junior Seminary, Drapa SHS, Canton SHS, and St. Francis Girls SHS in the 2020 edition of the National Science and Maths Quiz. For the boys at Francis Xavier, who won with an impressive 58 points, contestants. They are the first team to qualify for the tournament in 2 decades.
At that time, all that I had to say was, I was just saying in my mind that I know that God have put myself on him and he will never disappoint me. So at that time, everything was just prayers.
Oh, we don't have a secret. Our only secret is God, and per our preparation, we relied on him. In fact, to a point, we're almost like demoralized. But per what we've done and our prayers, we knew that God wouldn't fail us. Yes. So at that moment, it was still draw. But
we're somehow panicking on stage because of how we're because how we and Laura were tight.
And we are very excited, as my sister said. At first, when we were getting the wrong answers, we nearly cried. We even said, "Oh no, we are not going there." But as we break the tie, in fact, we are very happy for what we did. And I know when we reach to Accra or wherever you are going, we are going to conquer them.
I'm feeling very excited for all what happened. To be frank, at the first we were thinking we were losing, but God being on our side. And then the training we did, we knew God is not going to fail us. In fact, some of us nearly cried, but by the grace of God, we were able to make it. And then we give thanks to the Almighty Allah for all what He has done for us. And we know that when we go to Tamale, He is not going to fail us. We are going to make it. We are going from 17 to 100%, I say, in Jesus' name.
The trainer of the team, Ababasa Olina, called for support from the alumni of the school, which includes current Speaker of Parliament, Alban Pipin Toba.
So we went and sat back and said, what is really the problem? So we need to build and pick up the pieces. So we did. In fact, I'm most excited because I'm also an old man of this school. And I said, whatever it takes, said that we are going to prepare and qualify, we are going to do it. And God willing, we have done it. In fact, we are really constrained when it comes to logistics. Sometimes you see that some of the things that affected us was the bell, how to ring the bell, because we don't have one for training. So we only train in a vacuum. So we lack a lot of equipment and we lack a lot of logistics to work around. So anybody, be you an old boy, be you a philanthropist, be anybody who wants to support academic work, anybody who wants to fund the group of WA Senior High School, we call it Great WASEC. If you want us to grow, come and support us.
Rafiq Salam is one of the alumni of the school.
I feel great because I'm told that the last 20 years they haven't appeared at a contest. But let me also tell you that I'm a student. I completed the school somewhere around 1994. And then I also was also part of the team. It used to be called Brilliant Science and Math School. So I was somehow an unused substitute in that particular contest. But say kudos to the boys for making Great WASEC great again. They need to put a lot of things in place because the first thing that is by qualifying. It's just like the World Cup. Once you qualify, you prepare for it, and I think the WASEC will move to places.
And we can now sign out, right?
Reporting for JoyNews, Rafiq Salam.
Rafiq Salam, of course, and wow, featuring right there for the first time in 20 years.
Yeah, I'm happy for them. May they go really, really far in the competition. But later on today, there's Presec, Legon, there's Accra Academy, and there's Achimota School.
There's your favorite school, Achimota Senior High School.